Yay! Oh my God, I love when technology works. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking around to watch this. I'm really excited. This is someone I've gotten to know quite a bit, although I learned a few things I didn't know about them in the prep for this interview. And you should stick around. This is the official introduction for this week's guest. Today's guest is known as the Step It Up Queen. She's on a mission to empower entrepreneurs who, in turn, will better the world. She helps her clients have more clarity, more profits, and more fun. With over 20 years of experience as a business coach and speaker, she has worked with thousands of people to just finish the damn project. Specifically, she coaches thought leaders through writing and publishing their transformative books. Despite struggling to learn to read due to her debilitating dyslexia, she's the award winning author of more than 30 books. Her latest book is The Most Common Entrepreneurial Mistakes and How to Avoid Them. Please join me in welcoming Lisa MacDonald. Hey, Lisa.
Thank you, Robbie. It's so great to be here. I just love all your work and I love to be able to contribute to it.
Very exciting. Thanks for joining us from your place in Tucson, Arizona. Thrilled to have you here. And as you know, this is a show about building strong networks, and the context is leadership. So tell me, how do you define leadership? And when did you realize you had the skills to lead?
Okay, so just for a disclaimer with leadership, I work with a lot of men with leadership, and I have different definitions per person because I think everybody does leadership differently. And I always like to, when I'm coaching, I like to help figure out who that person is and how they do it. But for me, it's about inspiring others to better the world and to do what they were born to do. I really like to be the cheerleader behind the scenes and just saying, and really helping people be who they authentically are and get their message out and to not hide their gifts because if they hide, then the world's not getting better.
I really appreciate that the idea that you're inspiring people to sort of bring that gift of themselves into the world, to actually move forward with that project, to share their wisdom and brilliance. So I love that. How did you first start to realize you had the skills to do that?
Yeah, it was a long go. So I was in one of those way back when I was first starting as a coach. I was in one of those really boring business networking groups, and there were all the suits there, and they were all, the board, the financial planners and the insurance people and all of that, and they were all standing up going, "Oh, I'm so good, I'm so good," and I was dying, Robbie. I just couldn't even compete. I didn't know how to do it. I was trying to pretend to be like them so I could have a business. And I was falling flat on my face. Absolutely just face plant. Then one day somebody came to me and they needed help. And so I did what I do. And as I was coaching her and just doing it, all of a sudden everybody started referring me. But I realized, oh my gosh, all I was doing was being a mom. I was believing in them, seeing potential that they didn't even know, and then doing butt kicking when they needed it. And soon as I became in alignment with who I was like, oh, all I have to do is be who I am naturally. So that was my first step. The second step, I took a leadership training and I just did it so I could facilitate in front of the room, honest to goodness. And somebody came to me and they go, well, you're a leader. You're taking a facilitating training. And I'm like, I'm not a leader. And they're like, oh, yeah, you are. What do you think? That made me think. And I was like going, oh, they're like, oh, you're a mom of 8 children. You're running all these kids and you help all support this and that and the other. And I was like, oh,
Yeah,
that's
I
when
mean,
I
you're
learned
you're a
about the
CEO of a household.
soft approach of leadership, not to have to be in the front leadership.
You just slowly, like, you just sort of drop in the mom of 8 children. Like, you clearly are a CEO of your household, right? Just to be organized, to stay on top of what's happening in everyone's life. Like, you have to have mad skills to do that. And then of course that translated into being able to support, coach, inspire others who came to you for that kind of cheerleading. And I love that you realize you didn't have to be like these stiff suits. I know what you're talking about too. Like, yeah, there's a
Yeah,
certain
it
spray and
wasn't that. It
pray.
was I'm not that. And when I go to the networking things, I show up as my quirky self. And I'm
Yeah,
okay. I mean, if they're going to be boring, that's fine. That's their jam. I hire them because I need the insurance, but I don't have to be that way because that's not who I am.
right. Well, so you've got quite the story, and some of this is on your website, which is the stuff I didn't know a lot about. But I want to take us way back, even further back than that. I want to know you were as a kid. What were you like on the playground? Were you kind of organizing your friends to get together? Were you sitting back and watching? Did you run for student, office or organize clubs and activities? Like, what kind of kid were you like in grade school and then on into high school?
I was very quiet. I'm the oldest of eight too. So I was running a household by the time I was 3, I was getting up and changing diapers. So, the kid thing is natural for me. It's just like, I know it. But no, by 6th grade, I was in the corner reading some fascinating book going, how can I be a writer? And I didn't really, the other kids, I thought that they were immature. So what they did was, somebody at school was really smart and had me go in and teach the kindergartners during my recess and lunch. And it was the most fabulous experience. That's when I really lit up, because I got to go and help and improve. And, I didn't care so much about play. That's one of my kids are like, Mom, you don't know how to play very well. I'm still learning how to play. That wasn't in my DNA, but I was definitely about giving and teaching kids how to read, because I knew how hard it was. I don't know how to do phonetics. I'm back from that time period when they didn't teach it. That on top of dyslexia, it just made it really hard. But I loved working with the kids. I loved making their lives better. So I was one of those where everybody comes and tells all their personal problems to, and in high school, I did become a student body representative, and I did get in trouble because I used to put really clever things up on the billboard, and everybody around town, I grew up in Idaho Falls, would come and drive by to see what I would post. And I would cause so much trouble. At one point, a guy was inappropriate with a girl. And so I wrote, "It's over, NS." It caused so much trouble. I was banned from doing that ever again. But people would line up, and they were taking pictures from all over town. There was speculation everywhere. So yeah, I'm a quiet troublemaker.
Quiet troublemaker. That's might be the title of this show, actually. The way you just described that is hysterical. But you also found a platform that got a lot of attention at an early age, despite being
I
kind of
didn't even
quiet
think
and
of that.
reserved.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got the whole town paying attention. What's
Because it
going
was
on?
boring about some baseball game or whatever. But no, I would go new and approved class of, and then I put the class down. I put also I'm so sad I didn't take pictures of it, because it was funny, some of those things, and it would drive a whole bunch of stuff. And so they were talking about it at the city council because it was causing so much trouble.
Oh no, God, I can just imagine fender benders while people are reading your brochures.
Well, it was Idaho. There wasn't much going on.
Yeah.
So, we had to make it interesting.
So it's interesting, in the introduction, I shared that you have dyslexia, and that was a struggle to learn to read. But then in 6th grade, you're reading on your own. So you're enjoying literature yourself. And you're also seen as someone who's very studious and you like teaching. And so someone has a remarkable idea to give you the opportunity to work with kindergartners, and you're helping them read. I mean,
Mhm.
that's kind of fascinating. How old were you when you were diagnosed with dyslexia? Was that caught pretty early on?
No, and I didn't get trained. I had no intervention. Basically, in 6th grade, I was caught. And what happened was they pretty much gave me a decision in 7th grade. I could either go to what they called back then the resource class, or I would be integrated in the normal class. And they told me that I would fail. They told me, you will not do well, whatever. They didn't tell me that they put me in the resource class. So the first day in class, they're going, get out your crowns, whatever. And I went up to the teacher, totally embarrassed, and go, you put me in the wrong class. All of a sudden that put big crisis. My dad got called in, my parents got called in, and they gave me a choice of whether to go into mainstream or to go into resource. And I'm like, let me fail, baby, put me in the main thing. And I never got any help or training until I was starting to go into for my master's degree. And I went to a dyslexia center and saying, okay, I would like to be able to have some help to be able to do this high level academia and not crash on my face. That's when they started showing me some of my life skills I've developed to hide the fact that I still struggle with. And then I get lost all the time now. Even I still have the problem. I still get lost, and I still misdo things. But now it's so much easier because we have all these wonderful apps and resources that can help.
Yeah, I mean, these apps and resources help everyone, not just people with dyslexia, get through life. I joke that I moved here 2 years ago, and I know how to get to Costco without GPS, but that's kind of it. Like
I would
beyond that,
still
I
be
use
lost in
GPS.
Italy. With my sister and I, if we didn't have that app, I just
Yeah, yeah, that's the interventions we have today for all of us. So it is interesting, and I want to sort of follow this through line because you, of course, went on to be someone who publishes books yourself and helps others do writing, and so clearly your love of learning, your love of literature continued, but it was challenging early on, and it sounds like you went through 20 plus years of not having the supports you needed to really thrive in that
I
area.
had teachers tell me I would fail. So I had one of those sub teachers, and he saw me reading one of those craft books in high school. He flat out in front of the entire class told me that I would never, ever, ever make it. I have had multiple teachers tell me I would never make it. Even when I was in college and I was taking the class, I had a teacher yelling at me saying, "You can't do this, da, 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 da." And that paper that they gave me a D on, thank you very much, I went and turned around and sold it 3 times. So it was like, it lit a fire on me. It's like, you tell me
Yeah.
I can't. And, I know, and my dad, he was very wonderful in the fact that he told me, he goes, "Lisa, anybody can spell, but they don't have the creativity you have." And I remember thinking, but I can't spell. If anybody can, but I can't. And I still struggle with it. I still work with it. I still try to work on that. But he at least encouraged me to be creative. And I've, since then watched documentaries on dyslexia and see that because I see things from a 365-degree view, it makes me really good at being able to be a coach. It makes me
Mhm.
really good at seeing things that other people don't see. It makes me really good with dyslexia. We're actually really good at crossword because words pop out, because things pop out to us. And so I can all of a sudden, the word repetitions drive me nuts because I can see it where other people might not.
Mm. So when you're about 12 years old, maybe getting into middle school, junior high, did you have a sense of what you wanted to be when you grew up?
A writer.
Was there a path in front of you?
A
Writer?
writer. Since the moment, and from sixth grade on, I wrote a horrible, horrible poem during recess. And because it was Idaho, if anybody knows anything about Idaho, the wind is always blowing. And so I wrote, "Why does the wind blow? Why does the wind always blow?" I just went on and on. And to be able to capture my thoughts and my feelings in words, I'm still craving going, how to do that? How to really be representative of who I really authentically am and to be able to capture it. To me, that was just fascinating. And then I would look at a book and I would go, what would it be like to have your name on something? Because I had came from a little bit rough childhood, and so books were my way to my portal to a different world and imagination and going there. And I wanted to be able to give that kind of gift to somebody else.
Did you know anyone who was a writer? Was that sort of a tangible goal in any way? No, it was
I
very.
knew no one, and I didn't have any. I mean, no training, nothing. It wasn't until I'm a more non-traditional student for my master's degree, and I went and got my MFA at just I think 4 years ago. So it wasn't very long ago, but people don't understand what a privilege it is to get training with top writers. And I'm with some of the students weren't appreciating it. They were out having parties in the weekend and showing up fatigued. I'm like going, but this has been something I had been wanting to help, from going from beginner stage to actually getting deep understanding on literature and craft. I've wanted it my whole life, and it was hard to access that kind of support.
Well, it sounds like you did head off to college if you were going on to get advanced degrees later in life. When you were heading off to college, was that a given, first of all? I mean, 8 kids. It was that like, was college like a given? Did you have to find your way to pay for it? Did you know what you wanted to
I
study?
earned half, and my deal with my parents was I earn half, they earn half.
Mm.
And then the other deal was I was not to get a job during college, which was the biggest disservice my parents probably have ever done. It really gave me a lot of hiccups. So that it was not a given. I couldn't get into the college at the university that they wanted me to. I wanted to go to Moscow, Idaho, the party school, and my parents used their connections to get me back into the university that they wanted me into. So no, I was put on probation, and the education where I was at was not good. And so when I got into college, all I did night and day was study, study, study. Because with dyslexia, it takes longer, it's more work. And I was terrified of failing. And I had to I worked 3 times harder than my dorms, my college students, my roommates. They were going getting A's, and I'm over there just praying that I can get a C. So it was not easy,
Not
I
easy.
had not had the background or the knowledge base to go to really do well, but I worked hard. And I noticed a lot of my my roommates, they were there on scholarship, they were straight A students, and a lot of them fell out because they didn't have persistence
Mm.
and they didn't have grit. And then I learned that if I did every assignment, it actually gave me a huge competitive advantage. Not a little, not in a class of 200 people. You would be amazed at how many people don't do all the assignments. And that's where I learned about, in business, not everybody's willing to do everything. So that grit is a huge gift.
Yeah, I feel like this grit is a underlying theme in your story too. The perseverance, the follow through. I can really appreciate how that continues to show up. What did you decide to go to college for? Like, what was the degree you were pursuing?
Well, my mom wanted me to go for the MRS degree, and she just told me to take cooking and sewing and children's development. And I was like, if I have to pass that stupid math classes, because I felt bad enough on the SAT because I didn't take math classes because nobody guided me. And so when I did the test, I just filled out the guys I was dating's initials. So I didn't do very well. I was over there going, I have no idea what they're even asking. So I had to take all these beginner math classes so I could do the foreign language option. And I was looking at my mom and I said, I do not care about your cooking and sewing and everything. If I pass those stinking math classes, I am going to get a degree, and I am going to get a degree right now because I don't ever want to have to take those math classes again. So I was very determined to never take math again.
And you went into business where you have to deal with numbers.
Not much.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
have
yeah.
to figure out how much I'm going to get paid and how much I need to get paid.
What degree did you end up with?
English, of course.
English. And then
Because I
what
was
did you
like,
use
you
that
just
for?
sit around and read books for a degree versus all those science
Yeah.
people. I thought they were suckers. I was like, ha ha, because I was like, wait, you can get a degree just reading literature and all the grades? I'm in.
Yeah. My sister got graduated with an English degree, and I remember being perplexed, like, okay, what do you do with that? Like, so what was the next plan? There's not like an obvious, like, it's not like pre-med where you know exactly what's going to happen next, or law school or something.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the
Well,
plan?
by that time I graduated, Robbie, I had 3 children. I was married and I had 3
How
kids
old were
under
you?
4. Yes.
How
I
old were
didn't
you?
walk because I just barely gave birth to my
Oh
3rd
my,
child. So,
wait, how old are you at the point that you graduated?
oh, let's see, 3rd child, that would be, I was about 24.
So you're 24 years old. You've got 3 children. You've just finished your undergrad degree. And so clearly you've been married at that point.
Yeah,
3 kids.
I got married at 19 because,
Married at 19, 5 years into that. Wow. Okay. So 3 into the 8. So there's 5 more kids to come. So did you become the homemaker in the end, or
I was a homemaker, but I also helped my husband grow his business, my husband at the time. And it wasn't until I got divorced from him and his business started tanking did I realize that I actually was really good at business. I had no interest in business at all. I thought it was like for the boring people. But then when he left and then he kept calling me and wanting me to coach him and all of that stuff, then I realized that I actually had a gift with it because I was the one helping him get, his business went really successful. And I was the one in the back of the room doing the strategy, doing the figuring, doing the cheerleading. And so that's when he was calling desperately over and over and over again. One, I made a deal. I was like, well, it's not ethical for me to coach you. So this is going to be, we're just going to do it as a friendship thing. And you do all the driving for all the sports for the kids.
That's right. 8 kids. I think you
Well,
struck
we
a
had
good
6 at
bargain.
the time, and he did
Uh,
all the sports driving, and I said, "I will take the phone calls, but realize I am biased when I'm coaching you. It is not an official coaching thing, and I will help you, but you do all the driving."
that's hysterical. Yeah, so you had no intention to be doing entrepreneurship. What was the business? What was the sales that you were doing at that time?
Well, it was what he was a video producer, so I was helping him just do it on the end. So he often put me in front of the camera. I didn't really like it. I was like, oh my gosh, these actresses, what they have to go through. No, thank you, And he did start doing movies, and so we did do movies together. And he would call me up and he goes, I need to have a script within and within 3 hours. I have actors showing up and they're going to be auditioning. And I'm like, I just gave birth to the 5th child. I don't feel good. Are you kidding me? And he's like, I will do all the homework when we get home. Can you just write the script? And so, we did do, and we produced together. We co-produced, and I was, managing person or writing the scripts for, I think, about 3 movies. So,
Wow. Are the 8 kids bunched together or spread
okay,
out?
there's the 6 kids. I had 6 kids by the time I was 28.
Okay.
And then I upgraded the husband, and then we had 2 more, and then I upgraded the husband again, and we are having 0. So, but
Fair.
all 8 are mine. I always get asked that. I gave birth to all 8 of them. None of them are doubles. No,
Nope.
it's just, yeah. So,
Yeah. Wow. So you had your hands full quite literally through your 20s and then for part of your 30s as
and I
well.
was writing through that whole time.
And you were writing through that whole time.
The
What kind of work
whole
were you
time.
writing?
Huh?
What were you writing?
Novels. Well, I actually wrote whatever the publisher would ask me.
How did you
So I
first get
had
that
quote
gig? I mean,
books. Huh?
don't jump over how did you first get paid to getting paid to be a writer is like,
It's
I don't
hard.
know. It's like amazing.
Well,
Like
it was
no
back
one
then.
expects to do it.
Yeah. So my goal was you go and graduate from college with an English degree, studying all the grades, and then just keep on writing. And so that's what I did. And it took me about, well, I don't know, I think about 2 or 3 years before our first manuscript got accepted. I have a rejection file back when it was print, about that thick. I mean, I was rejected
It's like 3
nonstop.
feet high. Yeah.
Yeah, and then one publisher accepted a manuscript because I heard that they were accepting quote books, and so they wanted quotes on about raising children. So I called it Life with the Kids. I'm like, I can do that in 2 seconds, And it was supposed to just be funny, when the dinner's done is when the house alarm is going off. When dinner's ready, just things like that. And then they asked me to do one on tips on marriage, and I'm like, okay, we'll do the 2 good things that's working in my marriage, and then we'll come up with the other 363 ones that I wish he would do. So, but during that time, I'm submitting novels too. And that year, I published, I think, 3 books in 1 year. All of a sudden, it hit. So I got the 2 quote books plus the novel, and
Wow.
then it started taking off. And then whatever the publisher asked, I knew nothing about branding, nothing about positioning yourself. But then all of a sudden, you have to sell books. That's what got me into entrepreneurship and coaching
Yeah.
was
Was
speaking.
was speaking in order to
Right,
sell
because
books.
when you're an author, they want you to speak, and then people kept coming up to me and going, "Hey, can you help me? Can you work with me?" And I'm like, "But I'm not a therapist." And they're like, "We don't care. We want what you have. You have a smile on your face, and you actually have children." So, things with that, and the darker side of they're like, "Well, you were able to survive. You were able to get out of a bad marriage.
Yeah.
You were able to how they wanted help with that."
Yeah, so people started to help you realize that you had more to offer beyond the writing, and that's when you started doing more speaking and coaching. Was there a specific topic you were coaching on, or was it whatever people asked of you for a while?
No, I started off okay. So my situation with my first was it was a domestic violence situation. So I did have to flee with 6 kids in tow, and we went and hid in the sagebrush for a while because I needed him to calm down, and it took me years to leave. I wasn't going to lose my children, and I wanted the best for my children. And so to learn what it was, to learn what I was dealing with, to learn the city's rules and all of that took years. It took years. So when I went and did that, he made it very public. I wasn't appreciative of that, but it became very public. So then people kept coming to me and kept coming to me. And I did get training with a lot of PhD therapists on my journey of trying to, how do I heal my kids? How do I make it so that they're not touched and we don't spread it down? So I had a lot of where I became a facilitator for them and a lot of education in that department. And so originally that's what I started off with. And I'm telling you, Robbie, it's so much easier to do entrepreneur stuff than coaching on that particular issue.
Yeah, to work with survivors around domestic violence is, especially someone who has lived experience, I imagine is incredibly draining,
Well, it's life.
empowering.
I got death threats, which that part was
Wow.
okay, but then they started coming after my children. That part was not okay.
Wow.
Not, I mean, because they don't like, I got my website all attacked, and I've lost a lot of the work that I used to do, and all that stuff because somebody was angry about the message.
Yeah. So how did you move past that message, since that was like what people knew you for? How did you, I mean, I almost want to say rebrand, but it
Oh yeah,
sounds
it
like
was.
for a while you didn't know about branding. But when did you realize you could take control of the narrative in that way?
Well, the day I got the death threat against my kids, I'm like, we are changing. So, and then I tried one company, I called it Redemptive Community. It flopped. It didn't work. And so I went to the clients that I had and I started interviewing them and started seeing, hey, why are you working with me? What can I put online? What's going on? What's so special? And Robbie, every single one of them said the same thing. Lisa, this is not going to help you. I know this is not what you're going to want to hear, but I hired you because of who you are. You make me step it up. You have more children, you have more health problems, you have you have the ex-spouse, you take away our excuses, you make me step it up. And I heard step it up every time. So I'm like, okay, I guess I'm the step it up queen. So that's where it came from, is from my clients' mouths over and over. And they're like, it's just who you are. That's what gravitated, and which makes it harder to do it online and to be able to position yourself. But it also let me know what it was, and it was fascinating when you interview your clients about why they work with you. I had no idea the impact it was having or why.
Who gave you the idea to do that?
A marketing coach.
So you clearly were seeking some kind of personal support, professional support around this. You hired a
Absolutely.
marketing coach. You're willing to be coached, so you're coachable. And then you followed through because they gave you the assignment. It's not an easy assignment per se, but you went and you did it, and you got these feedback that in the end was helpful because it gave you a way to kind of frame who you are, market it a little bit differently, and then you became known for helping people follow through on their stuff, their projects, step it up.
Yeah, I'm very known for, I mean, accountability. I got children, it's like, and as I told your group the other day, I was like, come on, guys, your excuses aren't as good as my teenagers. They're just not. I had 5 teenagers at once. I heard it. So, if you want to know people are really good at giving excuses and trying to get out of things, get a bunch of teenagers in your life.
Mm-hmm. And this latest rebranding, I know you've been going through shifts over time. How did you start? How do you continue to evolve? It sounds like you keep seeking new opportunities. The business became stronger in doing the business part of it yourself, the messaging. But how has it evolved over time?
Well, I get bored. That's how it gets. I'm a creative at heart, so I like new challenges. And so back in 2020, I went in and I got hired to just help people edit their books. I was like, ooh, that'd be fun. Content development. I don't do the line editing because dyslexia. I own that's not where my skill set is, but helping them flesh it out and helping with the books. So I tried doing that, and I love working with thought leaders. I love helping them, taking all my business knowledge and how they stand out and helping them craft it into a book to make a meaningful book using their signature stuff and just probing them and getting to the meat of what they have to offer. It's like, wow, this is super, super fun. So now I not only am doing the coaching, but I also have helped quite a few people write that meaningful book and get it out there in the world.
Was this starting in 2020 before or after March? Was it influenced by the pandemic or not? Not actually.
Well, the pandemic, I was teaching writing at a community college. And so that the pandemic helped encourage me to leave that, because really I wanted to make a difference in the world. And that when I went to the college, because I work at one of the most high first generation students and high diversity, and it was I loved what I learned there, but a lot of these students didn't have life skills. They didn't. I realized how much privilege my kids have just on knowing how to show up, do their homework, and just how to function in the United States way of functioning, right? And so taught the students I mean, I was supposed to be teaching thesis statement and writing, but what I really was teaching them on how to find your purpose, how to show up, how to be responsible, all those things. And I loved doing that. But then when COVID happened and we shifted online, which was fine, it was great. But I knew the entrepreneurs, I saw them hurting so bad. I'm like, I am not serving the right people right now. Because entrepreneurs needed help so much more, in my viewpoint, than the students did at that time. So I went back and I was like, I need to go back in and full fledged and help these entrepreneurs, because they were going to lose their businesses. And I believe the best of our world is going to be with entrepreneurs. If I
Mhm.
help entrepreneurs do their mission, the world will heal.
That's awesome that you were able to refocus your own passion and decide on who you wanted to work with. How did you initially attract those people? If you hadn't already been doing this, how did you get those first few clients to do this new work?
Um, Show up, networking. It's like I've learned, it's my energy, it's who I have to show up. So that is the best way for me to attract clients, is to show up. I can
Mhm.
do all this online stuff and all those gadgets and things, but where my brilliance is me resonating with the right people, and they come to me because I operate best in the feminine energy. They go, oh, I'm one of those. Oh, she can believe in me. Oh, she can see me. And so if I show up, then it works. If I hide, it doesn't.
Yeah, were you networking then on, like, virtual programs like Zoom happy hours or Zoom networking? Because
I
clearly so
joined
much
your
money.
group, of course. That was one of the first moves. Was
Yeah.
the No More Bag Zoom. I think that was my first group to join.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know
So
that.
yeah, I was like, okay, I'm going to show up, because you have like-minded people there, and
Yep.
people who would know who I'd serve, and people I can recommend. And so there was that, and then I would do other networking groups that were virtually, because I wasn't going to go anywhere. So
Mhm.
because we had some people at risk in the house, so I just showed up on Zoom.
Yeah,
And I
so
learned them really quickly too, because I was teaching at the time. And so within one, within one day, I learned Zoom. Thank heavens I have children. And they were so instrumental in helping me go online. At the time, I think they were 12 and 14. And my daughter watched me on. She goes, okay, you need to get out of this. They weren't liking me teaching, because there was some threats and stuff that happened. So they weren't liking it. And they're like, Mom, all you need to do is put up a green screen. I can help you with this, and the rest of it we can YouTube.
wow.
So we came over the walk, and they put up my green screen that I had sitting in a box, Robbie, for 3 years.
Ah, you already had everything you needed, you just weren't putting it up and
Well,
doing
I
it.
didn't want to be on TV. I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
want to do
yeah.
it.
Right, like you said, being visible is how you attract people who are drawn to you, so showing up. So, you mentioned No More Bad Zoom, so folks go to nomorебadzoom.com. It's something I'm still hosting. I hosted it weekly for 2 years for free, and now it's a free monthly, virtual happy hour for entrepreneurs, and, we have a good time, and then the rest of the month, you and I hang out also in the Content and Connection Club, which you go to contentandconnectionclub.com. You can learn more about that for just $25 a month. We get together and we have a weekly mastermind. And then Lisa, you just added a little element of accountability at the end of the weeks. I was away for a little bit,
And
and
he put me in charge.
I put you in charge. And so now this is how we add and develop. I love that in my absence, people stepped up. I agree with you. There's something about working with entrepreneurs that I really, really enjoy. You didn't have entrepreneurs as your network when you first got started. I mean, you were writing. It sounds like you're writing kind of whatever they asked you, really, everything from quotes to novels. So how did you start to develop the network that is supporting you today, you now have people in your life that are entrepreneurial, that understand the work you're doing, that are thought leaders. When did that shift start to happen? How did you start to attract those kinds of people into your life?
Well, I went to a conference in San Francisco. It was a big, huge writing conference, and I heard Jack Canfield speak. He shattered the glass ceiling for me because I wasn't going to go into business or anything. I had no intention of doing any of that. And when he spoke, I came home and started a business the very next day. And then I joined his mastermind group. So that I was extra for what, because I was like, I wanted to sell books. Right. I was still going, I want to sell books. I want to do that. But by being under his mastermind group, I think I was in it for 2 years. It changed my life. It changed.
Wow.
And then I was hanging out with all these business people who were very generous to me. And they helped with, and they showed me. And even Jack, he was so wonderful. He goes, Lisa, you are the best out of everybody of getting things done. You're managing so much. So he's one of those people who taught me who I was and shined a light on that. And then, then I got invited to, he said, go do Toastmasters. And I started doing Toastmasters. And the Toastmasters, somebody, I hired him to fix my computer, and he goes, go to BNI. And so I went to BNI. And I tell you, Robbie, I ended up pregnant. I was in bed rest for most of the pregnancy. So I would show up for the one day to go to BNI, and I did the rest of it from bed. And by the time I had the child, I had a full practice.
Wow. That's incredible. So for those who aren't familiar with BNI, it's you commit to going weekly and also inviting people, and you practice having your quick elevator pitch to introduce yourself. And every now and again, you get a chance to say a little bit more. I've actually not gone. I'm not a BNI member, but for those who commit to it, it's just another way of staying in a network. But it's a very local network, and it sounds like you were also still building a very local based
I
business.
built a very local. Now, I do not have a local base. I'm
Yeah,
very international. It's a very,
right.
you
Changed a
know,
lot.
yeah, but my energy is not as resident for the local demographics. I do a lot better with high energy, and I look at my numbers. I look at where things are. I do really, really well in New York. I do really well in, and California. I do phenomenal in Colorado. So, but it's knowing where your people are and if they resonate.
Yeah, I get that.
And Canadians, oh, I love the Canadians. I have half my practice always has come from Canada.
Very international. So, when we think about networking, there's that inner circle of people that we know we're going to stay in touch with. And then there's the second and third layers or second and third tiers out, the people that you might see once a year at a conference, the people that you worked with 5 years ago, but you haven't really had a reason to since. These are people you like. They like you. You enjoy each other. I should always mention that. How do you think about nurturing and sustaining those kind of weaker connections, weaker ties, or any kind of habits, philosophies,
Yeah,
practices?
yeah. I have a philosophy called, well, it's not mine. I took it from a mentor, from Mark LeBlanc. He used to be a former national president of NSA, National Speakers Association. And he has this program called Storm Starters. And so he reaches out to people that you know and you like, and you reach out to them every day. And so every day I'm reaching out to somebody every day. And at first it was really hard because of my introverted soul. It's really scary. But then I learned that I can send them love and I can reconnect. And these are people I love. Why? What is the negative of telling somebody how much you appreciate them and what specifically to that person? And so it's become a joy because I get to know what they're doing. They get to know what I'm doing. Sometimes business comes out of it, but it's not for the purpose of business. It's a purpose of sending love and staying close to people that over the years have really made a difference in my life.
That's a great sort of practice, and I love that you gave Mark a shout out. He's quite a figure in the National Speakers Association.
Yeah, he just got his big the big award. What the
CPAE, yeah, he's
Yeah,
part of
yeah,
the
he just got that. It
he
was
just
so fun to
joined
send
the,
him like,
Speaker Hall of
yay!
Fame. That's right, because congratulations to him. We'll put a link to more information about Mark in the show notes. So I'm curious how you decide who's gonna be on the list, to be reaching out to them. Like, how do you determine who's added? Do they stay on the list year after year? Do you just constantly look for new people? Do you have a list of 50 people a year? How do you determine who you're going to continually nurture?
Well, I used your book. Yeah. But wait, what was it?
Small list, big results. Launch a
Yes,
successful
yes.
offer, no matter the size of your email list. Small list,
Yeah, and I
big
did his book
results.com.
launch and everything, and you had a great thing of where you went down, and you have a very strategic way of figuring out who is on the list and who isn't. So, I'll bypass going into big detail, but I used your book, and then I go through it, and I did, the hots and the nots and the people that you can't wait. But really, honestly, Robbie, every day I show up and I intuitively go, who should I connect with? And will do that, and it's natural. I have a list that I go through and look at it, but I'm like, there are certain names that will just rise up, and I'm like, today, and how I communicate with them. Sometimes it's going to be a a Loom message. Sometimes it'll be a phone call. Sometimes it'll be email. Sometimes it'll be Facebook thing. But it's really just tune in.
Mm-hmm. I love this. And the fact that it's a daily practice means it's now a habit that you formed. It's a rhythm. And though I know at first it was a little hard as an introvert to
It
think
was
about it,
really hard.
but you
Getting
reframed it.
over myself, right?
Yeah, you reframed it. So now it's about pouring love into the world. I mean, I've been doing a Follow Friday post for years and years now. And whenever I'm with my team and we're like, oh, I need more names for that. I'm like, oh gosh, first is like a blank. And then all of a sudden, like a name will pop in my head. And I'm like, oh, have we done this person? We must have. And then we look and no. And I'm like, oh, how is that possible? And, it's like, you want to stay on top of that. And I love the idea of just like shining a light on people, giving them some love, either publicly or privately. The more specific, the better when you're appreciating people. That's always a good thing.
Right. And I had
That's,
a challenge because I had changed my name a couple of times and I had moved a couple times. And so,
mm,
re-waking them up my network
yeah,
it was a lot more challenging than it is for the normal individual because, you got out of sight, out of mind, and then you keep changing your name. Does not help.
does not help. Yeah. You have to find a way to keep getting in front of them so they can connect the dots.
Right.
Like,
And some of them are like, oh, I didn't know that was you. So it's just like,
I love that. I love that. So we're wrapping up here. We're about to get into my favorite wrap up question. Before we do, let's take a quick moment to hear from our sponsors. All right. So it's a year from now. I know we're going to stay in touch. And I know that I'm probably going to see you more than just once in a while because you're in the Content and Connection Club. But let's say it's a year from now and we're catching up and I suddenly, or maybe you realize it's been a year since this interview. What are we going to be celebrating together a year from now? What are you in particular going to be celebrating a year from now? What are you most looking forward to in the year ahead?
I can't wait for this book to change entrepreneurs' lives to absolutely, it's the most common entrepreneurial mistakes and how to avoid them. And it's just like a foundational thing. And I'm already getting wins from people about how it's growing because I'm taking all my knowledge of being a coach for 25 years and I put it in there and I backed it up with research and all that fun stuff. But what I want to celebrate is how the world has improved by people of going forward in their business, getting the skill sets that they need, me being a little contribution to it, and to just celebrating that we are no longer in the crazy world because people are showing more love, people are showing more tolerance, and people are getting their skills out and their talents out in a bigger, more powerful way.
So read its full title again so everyone can hear it. And where can they
Okay.
find that book? So the
The
title is.
most common entrepreneurial mistakes and how to avoid them.
Mhm.
And they can find it on Amazon.
Fantastic. We'll put a link in the show notes to the book as well. This is just your latest book, 30 some odd. This is 31, I think, for you. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's 31. I just signed a contract for my 32nd. And I know
Wow.
it's very confusing because this is the only book I published under MacDonald. So it makes it really. So I tried to hook some of my other ones up on Amazon, and Amazon was like, nope, you're not that same person. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
look at my picture.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll put a link to this book on the show notes for sure so people can find it. I feel like that's such a great topic because one of the things I felt is as soon as I figured something out about entrepreneurship or really kind of about anything, I immediately want to, you know, make it into a 3-step process and teach it. Because I'm like, if I had a struggle to figure it out, I want someone else to get past that particular hurdle. And then people I feel like who are further along are helping me do the same thing. Like I have had mentors and coaches help me sort of look around the corner when I couldn't, to tell me like what else was coming up next in my business or what else to look out for. So it sounds like a foundational book for a lot of people.
Yeah, what I did interview 50 different entrepreneurs in 50 different industries back in '08, what their biggest mistakes were and what is. And then I came back and interviewed people again of how it changed with 2020 and all of that. And there's a lot of quotes from a lot of, it's not, I didn't want to be just me because I'm just one entrepreneur with one
Right.
experience. I wanted, but the thing, Robbie, is one of them that you'll hear and that you'll really appreciate was networking, that they didn't network. But it's foundational principles that apply to almost every single service oriented business.
That's brilliant. Well, I can't wait to celebrate the success of this book. If you get a copy, please read it and write a review. I will ask on behalf of Lisa. We both know how important reviews are. And I know a lot of the folks listening were great about writing reviews for my books. So how can people find you and follow your work?
Yeah, if they go to stepitupqueen.com, they can find me. They can learn much more about that. I'm also on LinkedIn and Facebook. So those are my
Fantastic.
places to hang out.
We will put those links in the show notes at honestschmooze.com. Lisa, thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for being such a great peer and mentor.
Absolutely.